corrections in the commodities market, and no big shift in the acres in the USDA report. We are going to speak with Jerry Gidel from Midland Research in Chicago, right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. So, Jerry, how are you today? We are closing the week with some corrections. What's the reason for those corrections?
Well, we've been kind of choppy ever since we got through the USDA's numbers from last week on their ag outlook for them. And that the last day or so, day and a half, we've had some weather forecast that for Argentina that actually doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition, with some more rains possibly moving into Cordoba and that. And then the financial markets in the U.S., we're getting the feeling like they were a little overblown, and we had stronger bond prices, and so they were weak. And then we ended up decided in reality here that that the 1st of March, where we do tend to have some deliveries in the past, could happen today, which it didn't, by the way. And that's so the markets have slipped back. We're still, though, going to be really focused on South America and what's going on there. And particularly right now, it seems like there's a building potential for a flash drought coming back to impact Argentina. We had some great rains there late January, early February, but it's really been pretty limited rains in the important areas of Buenos Aires and Cordoba and Santa Fe here over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And that's a long time, even if the temperatures have not been fantastically hot.
Yes, and what about the U.S. factor? Are you not seeing any changes in acres for the U.S. coming crop?
Well, the USDA's put out their numbers last week. They were a little less than expected than some of the people in the corn area. Corn acreage, they were only looking at 92 million versus as high as 93, 94. And on the bean sides, they were looking more like 89.5, and it came out 90. I think there might be some minor adjustments upwards on these things on the later this month, or later in March, I should say. But in general here, the other big factor is that as we look towards, the USDA's March numbers, I think there has not been a great tradition of the USDA making a lot of adjustments in the February or March numbers here this time of year. And particularly with, I think there's a lot of people wanting to see some better results or more concrete numbers coming out of Brazil. And that's been a struggle. You know, there's rain's been going on in Mato Grosso. We haven't had a huge surge in harvesting up that direction. Paranon's actually had some issues continuing here with some rains. So in general here, the yields have still haven't totally revealed themselves. Last week's numbers were 31% to 34% harvested in Mato Grosso. It's probably going to be up there closer to 45 or 50% this week, which is important in that. Nationwide, though, we're still struggling. Normally, Paranon's doing fantastic this time of year as it gets a lot of its beans pushed into Paranaguá and we get a good sense of that crop in that province, and that along with Mato Grosso. And I think that's going to be the biggie here as we go. The South American prospects are the key thing, because at this point, I think the Chinese are going to be patient. They're going to hope that they're going to get the balance of the beans they've ordered from there, and not have to go back into the U.S. because there's really not any extra beans at 120 million bushels here, carryover stock in the U.S. by next September. there's not a lot extra. And at this point, the U.S. sales are only 45 million away from the USDA's projection, and so it's a situation where I don't think our major buyer wants to incite the market to go sharply higher. So they're going to try to be patient here if they can to see what's happening. But if Argentina starts to end up having some issues, that could tilt the belt.
Yes. Is there a reason, in your opinion, to be bearish on corn? Because I'm seeing some lower prices in the second half of the year. And I wonder what would be related to that, because Brazil is late on the safrinha. And also the US is not having great weather. So what's your opinion?
Well, I think you've hit some of the important areas there, Louis. The key thing is that a lot of people, and they're rightly so here, the demand portion of this market, where the Chinese have bought a lot of things in both corn and soybeans, and now we got South American prospects coming. Seasonally, there's a little bit of a slippage in the prices here during the month of first part of March up and through, April, until we get into our U.S. planting period. But I think two things you're talking about, this whole issue of corn plantings in Brazil being pushed back. And that's a big factor here. I think a lot of people are, the monsoonal season on moisture will continue like it has. We only had a couple of years where it doesn't start to push all the way to the middle of May or after. But I think it's a dangerous zone and also I've even heard some people actually thinking about that they might reduce the producers in Brazil might actually reduce their corn plantings because of the fact that they're not getting their beans out. I'd have to say that's probably, considering the prices out there, that theory approach on Brazil's output is probably a little aggressive. Farmers, particularly when prices are good, they make an effort. Even if you kind of remember in 2012, when we actually had our planting intentions to move up about 1.5 to 2 million from the March level to the June level, and we had our highest plantings ever in the U.S. at 97 million. And they say, well, geez, why did they do that? It was a drought. Didn't you know it? Well, everybody assumes that the rain will be somewhere else, and they'll get the rain, or someone else won't have it. And so, in general, the South America continues to be a very interesting world. And I think really right here in the short term with Argentina, if this is a spot right now where they could have an impact on their output if they miss this rains for another 10 days, 2 weeks. So from there, I guess the other twist in this thing, if you want to be bearish on corn, is that you think that the USDA's 92 million is completely wrong again, and it's going to be like 93 or 94 million, and yields are going to be fantastic. Well, you can't have everything. You're going to have more yields. You're not going to be planting it on the best ground. Then you're going to turn around at this point with the western third of the U.S. completely dry, and the plains in the U.S. not looking very good, and even parts of the western corn belt in Nebraska and Iowa looking pretty puny. I'd have to say that trying to put up big yields this year is an optimistic term. But the thing about it is it's maybe switching over in the near term to a supply-driven market, and we don't have a lot of information, and that's probably the old game of you got to feed a bull every day, and we might be in that situation here. That's why this is a little tricky ground in here right now. We've had a lot of enthusiasm and that kind of stuff, and I think a lot of people are, after particularly yesterday's trapdoor on things where everything kind of slipped down pretty dramatically there, and that everybody wants to be cautious, and I think that's an excellent move. I think particularly in these markets right now, The volatility is going to be dramatic now. It's not going to be the easy part of a soybean and corn rally now. This is where every little twist and turn makes people nervous, up and down.
And the soybean rally, do you think that it was more related to the demand that the soybean meal is getting?
Well, it's interesting in the fact that this rally really since January in beans, and we've actually had, it took a while to get beans back up to the highs we had back in January, has been actually led by the soybean oil. Meal has been there, but it hasn't been the leading force in that. And I think it has a little bit to do about the general level of livestock demand on a worldwide basis. Everybody's optimistic about China expanding their hog herd, but there's been issues about African swine fever reappearing, and so that maybe that's still lead that the U.S. situation. Some of the recent numbers there are not showing any increase, primarily because we're not selling maybe as much pork exports to China, and that. So the wildest thing in this thing is that the soybean oil has went to some new highs, and that's driven by the fact that all the other oils around the soybean oil, canola, coconut, sunflower, all these oils that are used at various places in the world have been very, very tight in that. And then even palm oil has had lackluster kind of output in that. So that's been where the emotions is. And I guess one of the classics in the world of commodities in that when soybean oil becomes your leader between the two products, that's probably kind of the end of the short-term rally we're in, or in the rally you're at. So I think that's the reason why I'm not the only one will tell you that same story. It's been around for many, many years. And so it's a cautionary time right now in the soybean area. But I'd like to encourage people to be sure they have limited kind of old crop supplies left in their bins at this point, because we made quite a rally from $8.50, $9 all the way to, here we are, $14. And on corn, we went from $3.50 to $5.50. Those are pretty significant jumps.
And do you have any update on wheat and your opinion about wheat?
Well, the wheat market continues really to circulate around what is going on with Russia and that, and the Black Sea situation. Look like the Ukrainians in this whole issue have been willing to kind of hold their supplies internally and not have any conflict between the shipping it overseas and the internal demand. Russia's had this whole issue of coming up with tariffs and things like that along the way. And so there's a similar situation on wheat in the fact that we've had a lot of this news is in the market at this point. Australia's crop is still looking very sizable. Actually, at this point, it's kind of surprising. There's still attitudes that it's 1 or 2 million metric tons higher than the USDA's number at this point. And so in general, the key question on wheat going forward will be how does the U.S. crop start to look as it comes out of dormancy and that. And it's interesting. Wow, we had all this excitement here 2 weeks or so ago, where the extreme cold in Texas and all the problems and all that kind of stuff. And then I think about 2 or 3 days ago, we were already back up to 75 degrees in Texas. So it's a real yo-yo of temperatures in that crop. I don't think it's come out of dormancy, but if we have too many more days of that kind of staying above the 60, 70 degree temps, things could change faster down there than you think. Maybe we'll know more about the U.S. Winter kill issues sooner than we think. Normally that doesn't come around until late March is when we start to figure out for sure if that's the case. But I tell you, this worldwide weather has been really something, to say the least. We've had lots of different issues going on here, and this La Nina situation that's currently maybe igniting, if you want to say that. It's coming back from after it looked like it was waning, and that it's going to keep us watching the conditions around the world, both in North and South America, as we go forward.
Always clever, Jerry Gidel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, as always, Louis. Hopefully we will dive quicker into the USDA numbers for March next week.